there's always been people that when they see these well-uniformed people walking around with Nazi flags with their face covered, they're like, they're feds.
Yeah.
People always think that.
Yeah.
They always think that, which is a terrible thing to think, that your own federal government is involved in doing something to stir racial hatred, or at least give the image that racial hatred is being stirred, and then connect that racial hatred with people that just don't believe what you believe and believe in God.
Right. And that's why this Christian nationalist thing, it's a leap that's not very far in most minds from Christian nationalist to white Christian nationalist.
Right.
And it's so easy for them to say then that independent conservative churches, and I would say those in particular, are a hothouse for domestic extremism. And then they start cracking down on that. Maybe it's the FBI agents are going to church every week and they're writing down every single thing you say or every single thing you do. Maybe it's that, they start messing with the IRS status. Maybe it's that they create other pressures with zoning or whatever else to make it so that independent churches are very difficult to do. Because what they had in the Soviet Union, and I learned it, I actually didn't know it until the Timothy guy, the Russian guy in the film, was telling us, they had what's called a registered church in the Soviet Union. So the Soviets didn't get rid of the churches. The Soviets created a fake church that was like, Lenin, Stalin, Jesus. They have a church in China. It's called the Three Selves Church right now, where it's like, if you see pictures of it, it's super weird. It's like there's a cross and then there's like Mao and it's like President Xi. And it's like, what am I looking? It's so weird. And
what is it called? The three what?
Three Selves Church or Three Self Church. I'd have to remember if there's an S.
Oh, I need to see this.
And so they have a fake church. And they funnel people into it, and then they persecute everybody that's got religion outside of the fake church. And that was really the impetus for making the film. And we said, well, we've got to talk about the schools too.
Well, what's fueling the Uyghur Muslim thing where they're...
Well, communists don't like competing religion, so they also do like slave labor. And they like making examples of people to keep things under control. So if we just take it at face value that the C in the CCP stands for communist, this is perfectly in line with the way communists behave. That's what they would do with the Christian dissidents in Soviet Union. They send them into gulags where their job would be like to, carve a canal out of bedrock, working themselves to death in freezing conditions. And then only for not only the canal to not actually be deep enough or wide enough to do what it had to do. So it's, demoralizing that it failed. But then it drains whichever, I forget which lake it was, Aral Sea or whatever, gets drained because they're idiots and they don't know how things work. They think that they can be the masters of nature. But that's what they would do. They would round up these dissidents and send them off to Gulag. Gulag wasn't a concentration camp like the Nazis had. It was a re-education camp where they were trying to re-educate you through doctrine combined with hard labor. And if you died, you died.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And that's where communism leads to, kids.
That's where communism leads to. And that's why... other places too. So here's, you know who I feel bad for? And they get real mad. I did this at Northwestern. I told them this to their faces. I did a talk at Northwestern University last year, and they let a bunch of woke protesters in, and they carried on and yelled at me and were mocking me, doing the loser sign on their faces while I was talking.
That's really effective.
It's hard to keep your train of thought while that's going on.
Yeah. And
they started cheering when I started talking about Mao, so they know what it is. And I was like, cheer for your dictator. And they started clapping, and it was really creepy. But then, so I did this at Northwestern, and I told them something, and they laughed at me. But okay, so Mao created in the mid-1960s a thing called the Red Guard. People all know about this. It was young people. It was mostly college and high school students, but it went down to little kids. Xi Van Fleet was in China during the Red Guard, for example, and she's got that book, Mao's America, out talking about what that was like, surviving that. And the Red Guard went around, destroyed property, harassed, turned in people. They ended up rounding up the sitting president of the CCP, Liu Shaoqi, pulled him out, humiliated him, kicked him out to the countryside to die, right? He came out, he said, he's the chairman of CCP. He comes out, he says, am I not a citizen? Can I not speak? And these teenagers, by the thousands, were out there protesting him and said, no, you're not a citizen. You're not a person. You cannot speak. And they ended up carting him off to die in the countryside. Mao takes his power back. So that's the end of 1967. Took about a year and a half. So as soon as Mao gets back on the throne, we turn around in 1968, what does he do with that Red Guard that was so loyal that got him in? Did he give him trophies? Does he give him a spot in the party? No. He said the Red Guard has become too radical and too left. So he rounded them up and sent them off to the Gulag to die. And some of them were so brainwashed, they said shit like, going to work with the peasants in the fields will make my brain even more red as they got on the trains. So I told these kids at Northwestern, I said, listen, you woke kids, cheer all you want for Mao. This is your future. Stability is what repels revolutions. So if they need destabilizing forces now, that's you. But once they destabilize things enough to take power, as Mao phrased it, that's a new phase of the revolution. That's called building socialism. They don't need destabilizers anymore. They got to get rid of you. And I'm like, if you win, you get your revolution, you lose. And I feel bad. I talk big, but I feel bad for these kids that got caught up in this, because if I'm right, that's their future. It's probably a digital gulag, not a physical gulag. Maybe they're going to have to go farm corn or something, but probably they're going to have to sit in their apartment that's like 200 square feet with their Oculus on, pretending that they're going nice places, as long as they fill out enough surveys to give data so that whatever the data machine is can collect the data that justifies that and sell by participating zero in real life, they build up carbon credits that the rich people can buy because this whole fake carbon economy or sustainable economy that they're trying to build around it. I think that's really, I legit think that that's these kids' future. They go woke. They break themselves, they go in service of the revolution, and then the revolution turns around and eats them too. Snake eating its own tail.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm like, I wish I could wake them up, but man, they're in a cult. I seriously think they're disposable.
Enough people are going to hear what you're saying that it's going to cause a stir, and then more people are going to share it and be aware of it, and that'll help some. But the problem is there's not many people like you out there that are saying this in an articulate and very well-informed way, where it resonates with people. And they realize, like, oh, this is what's going on. I think I'm just trying to be a good person. I think I'm trying to be open-minded. I think I'm trying to be kind and compassionate, and really I'm in a cult.
I mean, I've had it happen. And I've had it happen. I had this one young lady at one point reach out to me and say something I said made her so mad that she went and she like blocked me on social media, and then she went and spent months trying to prove that I was wrong, and then ended up concluding that I was right, and it de-radicalized her.
Well,